So I recently took my midterm for my Spanish 102 course, and I received a score of 90%, which was one of the overall higher grades on the test in the class. I am satisfied with the grade I got because it is an A, and the grade did make my overall grade go up by a few percentage points. Spanish is not one of my challenging courses, therefore I did think I was going to do better, but I am for sure not horribly disappointed with the score I did receive. I do think my grade accurately represents the amount of time and effort I spent studying for the midterm. While Spanish is one of my easier classes in terms of assignments and/slash homework, I did still spend a few hours going over vocab and grammar rules. After the exam was over, I expected to receive an A with the amount of work I put into memorizing all the vocab and their definitions along with the grammar rules. But the A I did receive was lower than I thought it would be, which was a little disappointing. I prepared by going over the previous online flashcards I had made through the Quizlet for the vocab definitions, and I spent time going through the physical textbook to read over the grammar topics that had been discussed. I went through the grammar topics and I highlighted the important areas and made notes of what I either did not understand fully, or I wrote down complicated explanations, or I wrote down complicated explanations in layman's terms so I would understand the overall topic better. The only real specific study strategy I used was memorization through flashcards, and I guess also rereading the topics in my textbook. When I study for a language course, even in high school and now in college, I only use the above study strategies because I feel they are the best for me in comparison with perhaps doing example problems, which I use when I study for chemistry or math. I also do not take many notes in Spanish because the majority of the work and classwork is used learning the vocab and grammar topics to apply them in talking with my peers or my teacher. I began studying about 2 days before the midterm, and again, due to Spanish being one of my easier classes, I did not feel the need to study any longer, as I would have for perhaps math or chemistry, which I tend to study for about 5 days before. I did create a specific study plan because the amount I had to study for was small, but I still felt like I needed to be organized. And even though I had an already pretty strong understanding, I just wanted to help keep reviewing so I would get that A. And so thus, my study plan mostly consisted of, again, reviewing rather than hardcore studying. And neither did I attend an SI session or get help from my teacher or peers because I didn't feel like these options would actually be completely helpful since I did feel prepared for the exam before reviewing the material. And during the exam, I did feel prepared because the content on the exam was all the content that I had already mastered and just reviewed or studied and after understood. I did have all the materials I needed. The teacher was also allowed by the Spanish department to give us hints on word definitions of vocabulary that was not covered in class, which was helpful in some cases. And I did have all the information I needed because a portion of the exam was listening, which I did amazing on in the end, but the teacher was able to cover that portion of the exam with us, allowed by the Spanish department, which helped in the long run. Fortunately, I did not blank out or forget any of the grammar topics, but I was not worried that that would happen because I was so prepared before the exam. And when I walked out of the classroom, I did feel as if I put all my effort and best work onto the exam. During the test, I did not blank out or not fill out some parts of it. I completed all sections to the best of my ability. And when I received my grade on D2L, I was very proud of myself because I knew that I had done the hard work needed to obtain the score that I did. And we were not actually allowed to take the exam home when we received it in class, but the teacher did go over the main areas that the most people in class missed. And I did read the comments and feedback because we were going over the areas missed in class, which I was able to get help from because I did miss some points in some of the areas. And I did not need to speak with the instructor or clarify any questions because he either went over them during the large review session or I understood what I got wrong. No, and I did not review my study materials to see if they aligned with the assignment because the exam had titles before every section telling us which area of the grammar topics or vocabulary lessons the questions were from. Now, going into the future, I need to pay more attention to the actual structure of a sentence in Spanish that follows all the grammar rules. Because while I did most of the individual grammar topics correct, my overall sentence structure in the writing portion of the exam could have used a bit more review. For the next exam, which is the final, I can try applying sentence structure in doing examples from the textbook of building sentences from a few context clues to get a better grasp on the topic of sentence structure. And I feel that the amount of study time I had planned was already effective for the midterm, so I do not feel that I will have to change it for the final. If I do, it will only be perhaps adding a day to review sentence structure, since that is what I did the most poorly on. And I do not think that there are any specific actions or behaviors that I need to change, because while I am overall trying to work on my time management, when I was studying for midterms, I was able to overcome some of my issues for time management and study the appropriate times, especially for Spanish, which allowed me to get a 9% on my midterm. And thanks again.